Hi everyone, Jaden from Tails channel here. Or at least I am today, because we got a whole list of news, mostly from them to cover, and their host Evan allegedly got tangled in something serious.
Guilty.
And hasn't been able to cover any news for like the past month. So here I am, Good Samaritan, stepping in. I've got a huge video for you today. So right away, Philip DeFranco style, buckle up, make sure you're subscribed, otherwise I will scratch you. And I am a raccoon, so there's a good possibility you'll get rabies and have to move on to a farm in another state.
Let's just jump into it.
So the first story is some people's worst fears are coming to light. So Sega grabbed their collar and leash to take Azuka out and parade him around the press, saying the same PR statements he's rehearsed so many times in the Sega re-education camp. But in all openness, he gave a little tease of some important lore, saying that Sage's color scheme is intentional to resemble some of Sonic's past antagonists. And I think he thought it would be more subtle and ambiguous than it actually was, because if you're like 99% of the population, your mind instantly went to Infinite, who, by the way, fans are mixed on, since there is a lot of cool potential with his character, and a good many are willing to give him another chance if they write him well, but others want no connection of forces and want this game not to acknowledge it at all, giving a standalone story rather than a direct continuation. Personally, I don't really care, as it's not like a character having a connection to another character is going to ruin the gameplay or even necessarily the writing or story. It is possible Azuka is referring to some deep-cut character, and Infinite is just a red herring to throw us off. But if there's anything I've learned from covering Sonic news the past couple years, it's that it's never some big brain 5D chess move, and it always turns out to be exactly what we think it is. And there are countless examples of this, so my confidence on there being some tie between Sage and the Phantom Ruby is very high. And I'm clumping together the Phantom Ruby and Infinite because they really are hand in hand. The next story is a new combat and upgrades trailer for Frontiers has been released. And it's something highly requested I cover, but most of it's stuff we've already known and seen, so I'll only cover what was new in it. So we get a glimpse of Sonic's skill tree and some of the ability icons in it, but no screen names, titles, or branching paths. They specifically mention how Sonic will start out with his homing attack, drop dash, and stomp. But as the game progresses, there will be harder enemies and a different variety of new ones too, which is something we've already seen in Eris. This will make the latter islands feel really fresh and new, so you're not just getting the same enemies exclusively throughout the entire game. Of the new abilities and combos we see, there's Phantom Rush, which makes Sonic Goku teleport around to wail on an enemy, and aesthetic-wise, I think this one looks the best. However, a lot of people disagree and think the Sonic Boom looks the best, which is the mid-air kick attack with projectiles that we've been seeing in basically all the previous trailers. We also have Wild Rush, which is the one where Sonic darts around in a zigzag, turning himself into an electric missile, just throwing himself into enemies. They cover the Psyloop, which we've known most of everything here before. However, the reason I bring it up is they revealed a kind of OP strategy with it, where if you run out of rings and need more, you can Psyloop on the ground anytime to make rings pop out of it, which is really cool. I do have a feeling that sounds a little overpowered, a little too generous in my opinion. They cover the parry, which is what makes combat the most fun in these games, because instead of just swallowing punches and dishing them back, you can strategically counter, and it adds a whole change in dynamic of skill and fun to the combat. But before we go into the customization and other stories I have for you today, first I have to talk about today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Imagine you want to watch the US office, but you live in the US. Buying Peacock? Unacceptable. Well, what if I told you that, ironically, the US office is still up, but it's only on UK Netflix. And this is the case for thousands of shows, movies, and yes, animes out there. However, now with Surfshark, you can reroute your connection to anywhere in the world and have the whole globe's worth of content at your fingertips. Plus, that little internet provider of yours is watching your every move. And yes, even when using incognito. They know everything you've been doing, Ethan. It's easy to connect, and literally I've been using it for months before they sponsored me again. If you use my code, SONIC, you get an 83% discount plus 3 extra months, all for free. So go check out Surfshark and use code SONIC, link in the description, and I actually legitimately use this. So a great sponsor, check them out. Now, back to the video. So here's my favorite story, and one that not enough people are talking about. So Sonic Frontiers is going to have a customizable system similar to the one we see in Sonic Colors Ultimate, where you can change the gloves and shoes, but it's cranked up to 1,000 in Frontiers. You've likely heard all the hype about how you can get Sonic Adventure 2's soap shoes just from signing up to their newsletter, but there's also a ton of other ones. However, this isn't like Sonic Colors Ultimate, where they're just different recolors and like 3D animated textures, but the variety here is insane. The ones you get from the Digital Deluxe Edition are brown leather boots and gloves, which reminds me more of Ty the Tasmanian Tiger than Sonic. And this is probably what I'm going to be using the most, since I think it looks really slick. We also recently got confirmation on the leak about the Monster Hunter cosmetics, which, while I personally find them ugly, are actually the most interesting ones, because it shows that the cosmetics aren't limited to Sonic's gloves and shoes, but are full body as well. A lot of people are looking at Sonic cooking food, and people are jumping to the conclusion that this is a minigame. However, I don't think they're going to make a minigame just for this collaboration, and they haven't mentioned this style of game thus far, so my assumption is that this is a taunt. There's just going to be like a button that you can do that with, but we don't know for sure, so we'll have to wait on that part. There's also a collaboration planned for the world famous doggy VTuber Corone, who has a recolor of his shoes and gloves, but with her signature dog bone ribbons on both. There's also going to be a skin for the Coco to make them look like these dolphin creatures she has on her stream, I guess. And it looks kind of trippy because you're just seeing this 3D space with all these 2D dolphins and like a hyper realistic world. I don't know. I kind of love it. Another part of the Corone collaboration is changing Sonic's sound effects, which if that's planned DLC with Corone, I wonder what you can unlock in game. So Roger very well could be one of multiple Sonic voices to choose from as you progress, which I think is a really interesting concept. It reminds me of how in Halo Reach, I know I always bring it back to Halo, you could change out your firefight voice and there's all these like iconic Halo characters, and I thought that was just the coolest thing as a kid. And Sega, if you're listening, the Sonic Show iconic voice in cosmetic raccoon ears plus tail would make like a gajillion dollars. It's just something to keep in mind. Sonic Team is honestly doing a great job turning the initial bad PR around and keeping the details of this game really locked down. While they've definitely had their fumbles this release cycle, from accidentally leaking themselves the name Sonic Rangers to the press when it wasn't final, to recently accidentally leaking the combat reveal trailer, and Sonic tubers were uploading their video on it before it was even released. And all that to say, we still only know a few details on the customization, just like we do the other islands, and most of everything we have seen is stuff they've put out wanting us to see. So while it had a rough start, as a Sonic fan, this is probably one of the best release cycles I've ever witnessed. Like, we're less than a month away, and the entire community has avoided all major spoilers and leaks. I don't know if this has ever happened before. And the supposed stolen demo, if that, only went up to the end of Eris, and also wasn't even stolen. But, and you know, not too much offense, because I respect the hustle, but was just reported this way for clout, because they literally played the demo in front of the Sega employees, and the employees let them play longer because they were super nice and made it clear they were diehard Sonic fans. And again, no hate, because I'd be on that clickbait grind too, buddy. That's a fire title, I get it. But to act like this is some great game demo heist like we used to have in the early 2000s E3s is simply not true. And I'm just throwing this at the end of this story because I've been wanting to correct that for a while now, because that story went up while I was like taking a break or whatever, and now I'm seeing literally everyone misreporting it. Today's fun story is this short clip of Frontiers gameplay that was shared on Twitter, and it makes me feel funny. Yep, living up to the Sonic Show's original slogan, #1 source of pingas. The next story is on the Sonic Frontiers soundtrack, which this thing is going to be packed. There's a pre-order up for the vinyl, and there's two different editions. A two-piece, boring standard set, and a significantly cooler, way beautiful, four-piece collector set with a totally different design. It sounds like they're paying me to promote that, but I just think the other one looks way cooler. The soundtrack will be titled Stillness and Motion, which is just a prettier way of saying standing and running. It's going to have 150 tracks, which is insane to me. Also, quick update, it got confirmed that the 150 tracks go for 6.5 hours. That is insane, but like in a good way. Psychotically good. The Japanese release of the soundtrack is going to include a 40-page booklet with commentary, which is insanely interesting and something I want to get my hands on. However, it's almost certainly going to be entirely in Japanese. And our Japanese friends also get an art book with their pre-order, and they got a way cooler looking version of the Cyberspace DJ mix. So just another one in the line of countless examples of how Sega Japan grants dubs to them that they don't care about and we will never see. This next story is a bit of a goofy ride. Tails Channel, who's under the roof of their parent company, The Sonic Show, had one of their reporters, Azul, journalisming all over the big camera store in Japan for Frontiers, which apparently wasn't that busy since it was just a small side thing, and because of that, it was like super close and intimate. And while most of the content that came from this is just cool promotional stuff, and is all pretty self-explanatory, the best thing from this came from the game's director, Morio Kishimoto. He pulled down his mask for a second to strike a pose, something so kawaii that it's burnt into my memory forever. I will never forget this photo of my favorite cat boy, Morio Kishimoto. Also, the real official Sonic the Hedgehog himself was there, and Azul didn't get to meet him, or at least make physical contact, but even standing in his presence brought him weeping to his knees.
He's waiting back!
And that's something I can't blame him for. We've all been there, bud. If I was there, security would have to pull me off from kissing his shoe and worshiping the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog. Not Sonic a Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog. The last story is a quick one, but a collection of new official art pieces came out, and they're all gorgeous. I love all 4 of these. But the most extra special, and the biggest one, is of the main titan we've been seeing, with Supersonic ready to take him on in front of these god rays. And this was my live reaction when I first saw this.
Holy fuck! Is that a new Supersonic image? Oh my god!
And that's all for today's coverage. Now's the time, before it's too late, drop that like, double check you're subscribed, as I'm kind of bleeding out subs like Father Jose on June 18th, 2018. And I want to be going up in subs, not down, up. Hope you like these quicker news videos. As you could tell, I'm experimenting with formats purely out of creative boredom, and some are successful, some are major flops. So let me know what you'd like to see improved in the comments below. And that's all for today. Lots of love and peace. Peace to you all. Merry Christmas, everyone. Peace.